Hi there. Well, I've got a really interesting but kind of problematical engine to share with you today. Now, a really kind person recently gave me this Brown Junior 10cc spark ignition engine. It's an absolutely gorgeous engine. We'll take a closer look in a minute. But this engine has been absolutely driving me to distraction. I just can't get it to run. It turns over smooth. It's a twin ringed engine. You can see through the exhaust ports. It's got really strong compression. It does make a little bit of a clicking sound, which I'm not totally sure about, but it just seems a really nice engine, but I can't get it to run. It'll fire up and run for just a few seconds. I've taken off the fuel tank. There's well, I tell you what, let's have a closer look, and I'll show you the engine and just show you what I've done to try and get this engine to run properly. So this is an absolutely lovely engine, and you can see I've taken the tank off, which is a really nice amber tank with a fuel filler. You have to take out the valve, that slides on there, and then the needle valve goes through. And I was trying to eliminate any problems, so I thought, well, if I take that off, at least I'm eliminating fuel problems, and I'll use an external tank. Didn't make any difference. I've altered the timing, messed about with it, the contacts and everything, and it just, anyway, it's a lovely engine, as you can see. If we move the timer, we can see on the front there it says Brown Junior, and around the outside we've got Junior Motors Corporation, Philadelphia. And if we look on here, we can see the serial number. So this is a D series, and which makes this a 1939 engine, and with the fact that it hasn't got a bump, I believe, on the timer. So that's 1939, which is nice. And we can see here, made in USA. So it is an absolutely lovely engine. I just don't know what's wrong with it. Well, I've got to the point where I don't really know what to do next, despite the fact it looks okay and feels okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart and see if I can see anything blocked, damaged internally within this engine. So let's have a look at how we're going to get this thing apart. Right, well, let's start to get this apart. So we'll take out the needle valve. It did have a spring originally, but I put on a piece of tubing just to hopefully stop any air leaks in a bid to try and get this thing running. It just, it has really driven me to distraction. But hopefully we'll find something when we take it apart that we can hopefully resolve. I don't know what. Now, plugs loose. I mean, they're really simple engines. There's very little about these engines to actually go wrong. We just pull off the prop driver. Just wiggle that. There we go. Now the timer. Let me get a screwdriver and just loosen off the screw, which alters the tension on this, just to stop it moving during running. There we go. So now all we need to do is take off the back plate, and then it unscrews from here. So this is a one-piece cylinder. There's no head to come off, and you can use a tool in there. It looks like some markings where somebody's done that, but this is a screw joint here, which I believe can be fairly tricky, and we've got the back plate to come off. So let's take that back plate off first. Okay, well, we're going to try and unscrew the back plate using this bar that just fits in between those lugs, or well, actually in between the recess, and it will catch on those lugs. So we're just going to put that in there. We're going to push as hard as we can that way so it doesn't slip out while rotating. There it's going, I think. Yeah, right, that is coming out. So now we can hopefully, yeah, there we go. So I will unscrew the rest of this and we'll have a look inside. There, you can see, look. Right, well the first thing we notice when we take this back plate off is that there's quite a bit of binding on the back there of the big end catching this back plate. Now that could be because somebody's used an electric starter on it, or it could be that there's some binding issue. And if we have a look at the big end on the crank, or on the crank pin, as we rotate it round we can see it's pushing off. And that, if that's happening as the engine's running, it's going to be binding against this back plate and it is going to cause a problem. See there, it just comes straight up. Now I can't see any reason why that would be doing that unless the conrod was bent. If everything was running true, that would stay onto the crank pin. So I'm going to take out the conrod and we're going to see if it's straight. It looks straight, and I have used a little bit of a cocktail stick. I'll show you this very rough and ready technique I've used. I've put a cocktail stick on the back of the conrod like that, and I've used the torch just to shine a little bit of a light, and it's not something I can really show on the camera, but you can see the light coming under the back here, almost as if the end of the conrod is just bent down a little bit. So we're going to take that out and we'll have a look. And part of the problem though is this is quite a tight threaded joint here, so I need to make a tool so I can unscrew this without doing any damage to the crankcase or the cylinder. So I'm going to make a tool to clamp the top of the cylinder and we'll get some heat on it. Right, I've made a clamp. I've got a hole there that is the correct diameter for the head to go in, and this is deep enough that it covers all of the head fins and should grip them all evenly, hopefully. Now I know there's two holes here to put a tool in to try and unscrew this, but I just don't trust those. I think I'll either end up shearing off the top here or something could slip out. You can see actually there's marks on there where somebody has done that in the past or had a go. So, and we don't want to be clamping down here because we'll do damage. I mean, we can do damage here if we do it too tight. So I'm putting that in there now, and I'm having the Venturi pointing along here, so hopefully that will be out of the way of my hands. If I slip, I don't want to catch that and break it off. So I'm going to tighten this up, and it needs to be tight enough that it holds it, but we really don't want to do damage to this lovely 85-year-old engine. So that's still moving, so I'll just keep there. Now that looks pretty good. Now I'll just try turning it without some heat and just see what happens. Now that's still moving. Am I going the right way? Yeah, I am going the right way. No, that's still turning. I'm very nervous doing this. No, that is still turning. So tighten that up a bit more. Now I decided to use the hot air gun rather than my butane lamp. I just feel that this is a lot more gentle, if you like. It'll still get it as hot as we need it, but with the butane lamp you can get it really, really hot and do some damage if we're not careful. Now that's quite warm. Let's have a go. Oh gosh. Oh, need to be careful not to push on the crankshaft. I don't want to bend that. Oh gosh. Oh, that is really tight. Right, well, I have finally got this to unscrew, and it has taken me forever to do it, and I will go through and show you just how I've done it. Just clamping it on its own wasn't nearly enough because it was still rotating in the wooden clamp, and I didn't want to, I mean, I tightened it pretty tight, but I was concerned that I was going to do some damage and distort the cylinder. So I've right, let me just show you. Now it's how do I best do this? Let me take the, okay, so we've got the engine out, and I couldn't grip this hard enough to rotate it. I took the crankshaft out because I was worried I was going to bend that in the process. So I clamped it to this. This is just a small bit of test stand I have on the bench when I'm setting up ignition for sparkies and things like that. So that allowed me to get some purchase and turn it. But also, before I clamped it to this, I made up this, which actually has bent the screws because of the pressure, but that was just on the underside of here and was locking into the top of the cylinder there. So we not only had the wooden clamp, we had the pegs into there stopping it rotating, and we had this on here. And you have to be sure when you're doing this kind of stuff that the piston can turn nice and freely, because you don't want to twist the conrod. But you can see that now is rotating sweet. So I'm going to carry on now and get this apart and have a look at the crankshaft. Now, I don't know whether this has polished these fins. I don't think it's actually done any damage. That little dent or mark was there, you know, with it pushed down. But I'll have a look at whether they need just a little bit of attention, but I don't think it's done anything other than put a polish on them. So I'll get this apart. Right, well, we can see that there's no actual gasket on here, and I don't know whether there's supposed to be a gasket or not. It looks like there used to be a gasket perhaps, but they might just put some sealer on here, because this needs to be ground. That has been ground actually, and this needs to be ground to fit, because it needs to tighten up with the venturi pointing directly backwards. If I put a gasket in, a thick gasket, it might be that actually it tightens up like that with the venturi on the side, which is kind of no good at all. So anyway, I'm going to get this taken apart. Actually, you can see the bend in that. I'm sure you can. Right, we'll get this apart and we'll have a better look. Okay, so I've got the piston out. When we put this back in, we need to make sure everything is lined up properly. Now, I've just put a very light scratch on the back of this conrod. I don't know whether that shows up. So I know that that is facing towards the back of the engine. Now the piston has got these two bypass ports which need to line up with the two holes. I don't know whether I've got a torch somewhere. The two holes in the cylinder. You can just see them there. So it's easy enough to mark it and to make sure that we've got this connected up correctly or put back together correctly. Also, there is a oil channel from there which goes to this bronze bearing here. So we need to make sure that that is nice and clear before we put this back together. So anyway, let me see about getting this this conrod taken off. Oh, and you can see it's double ringed. What a gorgeous engine. Look at the shape of that piston on top. I absolutely love this engine. I'm so glad I've been able to get it apart, because at one point I didn't think I was going to be able to without doing some damage. Right, well, no wonder this engine wouldn't run properly. I mean, it would fire up, it'd run for 5 or 6 seconds and then just stop. Now, hopefully you can see the conrod there is a little bit banana shaped. I'm fairly confident, or I'm hopeful, that we can straighten that without any problems. The gudgeon pin is in two pieces, and I'm pretty sure that shouldn't be. So it looks like it's bronze, so I'm going to be making another one on my lathe for that. So that's two jobs we've got to do before we can start thinking about getting this back together. Well, I was hoping we could get away with perhaps trying to straighten this conrod, and of course we needed to make a new gudgeon pin or wrist pin, but we are going to have to make a new conrod. This one isn't going to be serviceable again, and this is why. Let's take a closer look. Right, we can see the conrod is clearly bent in two places, and I've put on a mark there where each bend is. If I just bring that closer in, you can see it's definitely not straight. So that is part of the problem, but we've got wear on the conrod as well. If we put the conrod onto the crank pin like that, we can see the crank pin, if I just hold that and get a pointer, the crank pin here is sticking out quite a long way. Now that crank pin is 1/4 of an inch long, whereas this is not, and I think this has been worn down where it's rubbing on the or was rubbing on the back plate. And if we bring that in, we can, it probably doesn't show, but it has got wear on it. If you look at it, you can see where it's been rubbing. So the bearing here on the big end is a lot narrower than it should be, so that has weakened it. And it's, I mean, it's not a huge amount of material there anyway, so we've got a weakened big end. Now if we look at the little end where the gudgeon pin goes or the wrist pin goes, it looks about the right length, and it doesn't look worn on either side. It looks like that's how it was made originally, as opposed to the big end. Now, because the gudgeon pin, where the bits are here, because that broke, and I think probably went up a little bit, and because of the bend in the conrod, it's caused the inside of this bearing surface to wear like an hourglass. Now this is a 3mm drill rather than a 1/8 drill, which is what the fit is here. But there's not much play there. That's a pretty tight fit if we keep it nice and square. But if we move it side to side, we can see there's quite a lot of wear on these outer edges. So I think this conrod is definitely compromised. It's too small down here, and it's hourglass there. So in actual fact, even if we could straighten it, which was perhaps a tall order, we've still got something that is defective and likely to fail in the future. Well, I'm clearly going to have to make a new conrod, because we just can't risk running it with this one. And obviously you've seen the gudgeon pin, so we're going to need a new one of those as well. But that is going to be the topic of the next video in this short engine series. And I hope you found it useful and interesting, the dismantling of this lovely old Brown Junior. And I mean, it's such a nice engine, such an iconic engine from 1939. It's something that we just have to get fixed and running again. And I am so pleased and relieved to get it dismantled safely without doing any damage. So anyway, I hope you found it useful and interesting. Please come back, see how we get on making our new conrod.